What up, guys? That music can only mean one thing, and that is that the Carrot Poker podcast is back a couple of days late this week due to life just getting in the way, basically, as it tends to do. Variance in life, variance in poker. Time is sometimes abundant, sometimes limited, so apologies if you were sitting there on Wednesday clicking refresh on iTunes over and over again, just waiting for the Carrot Poker podcast to appear, and it never did. That sounds like hell, to be honest, and it sounds like you wasted your entire afternoon and possibly your evening as well, and I apologise, my sincerest apologies for that. Totally my fault. But it's out now, hopefully Friday or Saturday, the absolute latest on iTunes, Friday on YouTube. We are going to do something a little bit different today and take a break from the saga of going through the sort of synopsis of my book, but more than a synopsis actually, more like the sort of bones of my book, as we're doing right now in the Grinder's Manual overview series. We're going to take a break from that today and not talk about anything too theoretically heavy, as it is, after all, the festive season and everyone is starting to wind down, hopefully, for the holidays. And I thought today we would do something a little bit more festive and actually jump right over Christmas, because let's face it, poker doesn't really have much to do with Christmas. There's not really anything directly linked there. I can't really talk about like poker themed gifts that you would give someone. It just sounds like a really lame podcast, to be honest, or what the poker Santa Claus would look like if he existed. So instead of doing those things, I'm going to jump to New Year and talk a little bit. I'm going to do something I did for grinderschool.com a couple of years back, actually. Maybe it was last year, actually, I don't remember. I think it was 2 years ago, where I talked about what would be examples of good and bad poker New Year resolutions. And I think this is important to do because I've noticed that one thing I'll say to my students every year in January is I'll say, okay, so what resolutions have you made this year? What do you want to do differently? New Year's always one of these symbolic times where in reality it's not actually meaningful in any way, just the fact that we happen to design our calendar in this way to obviously track the Earth going around the Sun doesn't actually mean that there's any gain to starting a resolution at this time of year. But, you know, logic aside for now, let's be a little bit light-hearted here and say, yes, this is, for us humans, a good time to make resolutions. Why not? It's the start of a new year, and in our little human minds, it does actually make it meaningful that we do something on the 1st of January. It gives us an extra bit of motivation that we don't always have, although I think there is some kind of statistic that New Year's resolutions always fail, or not always fail, obviously, but nearly always fail, because there are certain traits that they have, and poker New Year's resolutions are no different. So I'm going to start off in this podcast by actually talking about some examples of bad New Year's resolutions, and then I'll talk about what the equivalents would be in poker. And we're going to do 7 of those, and then we're going to move on to what would be good New Year's resolutions, ones that are, for one, likely to help you, and for 2, actually going to be achievable. What you set as your resolution and the way you structure it is very important to your expectation and your percentage chance of actually being able to succeed at that resolution. People make all kinds of terrible resolutions in life. You'll hear people say things like, this year I'm going to stop smoking, and they just don't set out any plan as to how they're going to do it. They just say stop smoking, and then they have like some vague idea that they're going to get some patches or whatever, but they've not outlined a plan. They've not really built up, they've not really given their mind structure to follow, and so it's very easy when the resolution is too vague to just not do it, because the brain is not really sure of exactly what it should be doing, precisely what the structure and micro-organizational layout is of how to achieve that resolution. So things like stop smoking, stop drinking, or I don't know, like be healthy, these are just eat well, these are just terrible resolutions because they're just so vague that the brain is just going to be like, you know what, man, I'm not going to bother with that because honestly I've had like no guidance. It's like when you're trying to like give a dog an order and you just say something that it doesn't know, that's just so vague, you're just like bleh at the dog, and you're thinking what it should do but it has no idea what you actually mean. Well, your brain is like that too. When you just say to your brain stop smoking, you're giving it a goal that's way too vague to realize because you're not giving it any kind of process to help it achieve that. So you need to know how to do things before you can do them. If I just gave you an order and I said like build me a microchip right now, you probably wouldn't be able to do that because you don't have any idea how to build a microchip. Maybe you do, but most people listening to this, I would imagine, don't. And it's the same thing. Your conscious mind or your subconscious mind does not know how to stop smoking. You have to consciously lay out the path for it because it's stupid and it needs that in place. So the first thing I'd say is that poker resolutions should not be too vague. So you shouldn't have something like be a winning player or play well this year or 3-bet better or stop making mistakes or be more aggressive or even stop calling down so much. These resolutions are too vague. Your brain doesn't know in which spots you should stop calling down so much or be more aggressive with your 3-betting. You need to actually study these things. So instead of just jumping to the result that you want, you should actually think about the process. So the second thing I want to say about resolutions is that it's really bad when they are results orientated. So in life, results orientated resolution could be get a better job. I mean, that's all very well that you want to get a better job, but you can't necessarily control whether that's going to happen. And more importantly, you've not laid out how you're going to make that happen. So there's a very distinct lack of process in this resolution, get a better job. And the same thing happens in poker as well when we say things like, we'll get onto my numbered examples now that I've prepared. Number 1, make 10k by May. This resolution is kind of ridiculous regardless of what stakes you're playing. You could be like playing stakes where this is actually achievable, but that still doesn't make it a good resolution because again, it's still out with your control. I might be a winning player at 100 no limit, and I believe I am, but if I play like, I don't know, 30,000 hands a month till May, it could be that if I run, well, then I'm expected to make 10k by May, but it's completely out with my control whether I'm going to run, okay, not run well, but run average. If variance is just average through that period, then I'm expected with my long-term win rate to make 10k. But of course that's out with my control because I could run bad for 3 of those 5 months, 4 of those 5 months, the whole 5 months. I could break even until May just because I hit a horrible extended patch of variance. More likely, I would just make less money due to bad variance if that was my expectation. But the point is that this is just a stupid resolution because for one, it doesn't help you in any way to do anything any better. Doesn't improve your chances of making 10k by May. It's literally just an arbitrary goal. And 2, okay, it might motivate you a little bit, but it's not going to motivate you in a specific enough way for you to actually achieve anything. And 2, it's too results orientated. Like imagine I made a resolution that was have there be less terrorist attacks this year. Like that would just be a ridiculous resolution. I'm sure everyone would like it if there were less incidents of terrorism or people getting shot or whatever, or gun crime or whatever the bad things are that go on in the world. But if you don't actually have a plan to stop that, it would be absurd to sit there and be like, this year I'm going to cause there to be less terror attacks. Pretty much out of my hands or your hands whether there are terror attacks this year. We can't really, you and I as individuals are not really going to be able to do much about that. So that's the same in poker. When you say make 10k by May, you're literally doing the equivalent of that ridiculous life resolution. Sometimes I like to frame poker logic, bad poker logic, in the context of what the real life equivalent would be, just to make people realize how absurd they're being because they have this inability to understand variance well enough, basically. Here's another example. Have a win rate of over 3 BB per 100 over the next few months. Man, if I had like $1 for every time a student has obsessed over win rate over a stupidly small sample and thought that it actually means something, I would be like, probably just stop coaching. I'd be like rich enough not to be even making this podcast, to just be sitting playing League of Legends or like Magic the Gathering or Bridge or something that I enjoy more. But yeah, there's a list of many like, geeky interests. Just in case you had any doubt that I was a huge geek, there you go. There's some proof. I'd also be like drinking and stuff as well, though. I'd have to take some time off the geekiness for sure. Anyway, so this win rate thing is just, it's absurd because all a win rate is the sort of the summing up of your variance plus a bit of your skill over some time period. Over a bigger time period, it's going to be more skill than variance, but over a small time period, it's very much variance, and over a medium time period, it's kind of 50-50. So when you look at a hand sample of like 60k, and you think, oh, this is a solid sample, I'm a 4BB winner over 60k, this is my win rate. Wrong. It's not your win rate, it's just the manifestation of your luck and your skill over that sample relative to your population's luck and skill. It's got absolutely nothing, it's got absolutely no high degree of certainty, and your win rate could be a few BBs off of that in either direction very easily, and if you're running very good or bad, it could even be 5 or 6 BBs off of that. It's very possible. So your win rate, when you look at this and you post it, your 18k sample, and you say, look at me, my win rate is X. No, it's not. You don't know what your win rate is. That's just what happened over that sample. The term win rate gives us this sense that this is a concrete thing that is definite and certain. No, it's not. It's literally just data that is accumulated. Like if you have a 3-bet stat of 15 over 28 hands, that doesn't mean that your 3-bet percentage is 15. Just like if you have a win rate of 5 BBs over 40k hands, it doesn't mean that your win rate is 5k. It's 5 BBs. 5k BBs would be a bit extreme. Okay, so that's a terrible goal. Never ever have a New Year's resolution that's about having a win rate of a certain thing, unless you're going to play like 40 million hands, in which case I'll let you away with that. But if you're going to play 40 million hands over the next few months, then you're just this complete robotic psycho kind of crazy person, and I envy you, but also I'm kind of like, I don't think you're human. So yeah. Number 3, bad example that's also two results and not process orientated, is move up to X stake by March and Y stake by June. This is a problem because, again, moving up in stakes doesn't solely depend on your skill. In fact, it mostly depends on your luck over a sample of like a month. If you have I've had students lay me out plans of moving through the stakes, and I've had a plan of moving through the stakes before myself. When I was like 21, I had no idea how to approach poker seriously. I had no idea about variance and how extreme it was. I actually set out plans to the effect of, okay, I'm going to move up to this stake this week and another stake the next week, and it's just totally crazy because even if I did have a win rate good enough to do that over the long term, and I probably didn't at the time, I had no control over whether that was going to happen. It's the same for you. If you're a plus EV 25 NL player and you say I'm going to move up to 50 NL by February, that's just silly because you can't control that. You could run bad, you could run good. Whether we move up in stakes or not over a period of a month or 2 months or 3 months usually is not dependent on our skill level. It's more dependent on how we ran over that period. So just remember that. Poker has way more variance than you ever thought possible, depending on the format, but especially like 6-max cash, which is what I teach. Win 75% of my weeks. This is obviously absurd. A week is a very micro sample in poker. You can't control what you do over a week. It's just, again, going to be very unfeasible. That's kind of like, I don't know, that's kind of like saying just like have positive weeks in life where only good things happen to me 75% of the time. You can't control that. Bad things are always lurking. They can crop up at any time. They can come in abundance. They can come spaced out. You know, there's variance in life as in poker, but in poker there's even more variance, so it's even more absurd in poker than it is in life to have that goal win 75% of my weeks. So it may not be that the goal is like completely results orientated or lacking process. It could also be that it's something within your control, but it's either too vague or, what I'm going to move on to now, the goal is just unrealistic. It's way too extreme. It's not achievable. It's too ambitious. And because it's so ambitious, you're just going to give up really quickly on it. That's the way the brain works. If we think something's futile or near impossible, we're less likely to try to do it. If we think it's achievable, we're way more likely to try to do it. Like right now, I'm nearly at the end of writing my book, and because the end is in sight, I know that I need to keep working on it, and I'm going to get there. But if I had another 6,000 pages to write, there's a very enormous chance I would just give up and never finish the book. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what would happen. So give yourself reasonable goals with reasonable likelihood of realization. Goals that are achievable. Challenging, sure, but achievable. So don't have a goal like, use all of my free time for poker. Not only is this just obsessive and unbalanced, it's just not going to happen. Things are going to get in the way, and you're going to start creating this weird situation where you feel guilty every time you're not doing poker-related stuff in your time off. Then you'll begin loathing poker stuff, and then you'll be forced yourself to do something you've grown to hate. You'll be doing it badly, you'll be losing, and you'll just ruin poker for yourself, and you'll probably quit playing the game, and it's all because you made this ridiculous resolution that was just a terrible idea. Use all of my free time for poker is bad. There are a lot of obsessive personalities among my students in the poker world. No offense to my students, but many of you are obsessive about the game. That's not a bad thing. I'm obsessive about the things I love too, but you need to rein yourself in. You need to have a bit of balance and structure. Otherwise, you will just go insane, and too much of anything is a bad thing, basically. Study 2 hours every day. This is too regimented. There will be days where you can't study 2 hours. There'll be days that something comes up where you just really, really don't feel like it, and it's not fair to make yourself do it if you really, really don't want to. You've been running so bad that studying 2 hours then just makes you so tilted that you just don't even want to look at poker for like a few days. Take some time off. Like, don't set anything that regimented and that strict. You're not in the military. You're not like having to get up at 5 AM every morning and do like 10 hand reviews before breakfast. No, like, make it fun for yourself. If you're not loving what you do, then you're not going to do it to your best ability. Here's another ridiculous goal that my students relay to me all the time. Stop tilting. This is just ridiculous. That's like saying stop being human. Stop having emotion. The real life equivalent, stop being sad when bad things happen. Or stop being angry when irritating things happen. Or stop being happy when things go my way. These goals are absurd. There's no reason that we should pursue them. And to stop tilting in poker is to dehumanize ourselves to an impossible extent. And while it may make us a better poker player, it's impossible unless we are like severely emotionally dysfunctional, in which case that's probably something you should just seek help for instead of just playing poker all the time. So stop tilting is just a really bad idea. as a resolution. What you want to say instead is, well, here are some examples of good goals, and we'll deal with the opposites of these bad goals. So good poker goals will focus on process and things within the player's control. So they're always going to deal with things that are achievable, are specific enough to allow us a clear direction that the subconscious mind can be like, oh yeah, that's cool, I know what I'm doing here, because you don't want the conscious mind to have to map things out the whole way through the resolution. It's going to get sick of that, and it's going to get lazy, and it's going to decide it doesn't want to do that anymore. Map it out when you have the inspiration. At the point of inspiration, that's when you want to dive in there and start structuring how you're going to work on your game or what you're going to do to get better at poker. You don't want to like just use that inspiration to say, I'm going to do vague goal X, Y, Z, and then later down the line when your enthusiasm's waning, which it will, by the way, it's guaranteed to at some point, pretty much, then you try and flesh it out and you realise that you can't be bothered, or you just do a bad job of it. Capitalise on inspiration when you have it. If you feel inspired on December 29th and it's almost New Year and you're sort of like coming over your hangover from Christmas and suddenly like the light is coming back into your heart, then maybe you want to do it then. You want to flesh out everything. So here are some examples of these good goals where it's specific enough and fleshed out enough at the time of making the resolution. For every hour played, spend at least 15 minutes reviewing. It's a great goal. It's something that you don't have to hold yourself to in a regimented way. You don't have to say, okay, I have to review right now if you don't want to, or I have to review at the start of every session or the end of every session, even if I'm furious with how I played. No, you can just make sure that the ratio stays roughly in check, and you don't even need to have it specific. If you're someone who needs like hard guidance, then maybe you do want to like keep an accurate tally of the time you spend playing and make sure you review those sessions over the course of like a week or something. But don't make it too specific. That's a really good goal because it's very simple, it's easy to remember, it's very clear, and it's structured, and it's within your control completely, and it will help you a ton. People don't review enough fact per se across the whole poker world. They just don't. 2. Structure my learning and create a focused syllabus relevant to my skill level and games. This is amazing. This is like one of the best things you can do. This is what no one ever has this. I've never ever had a student come to me for coaching and say, look, this is my syllabus. This is what I've set out for myself to do. Okay, they'll have this sometimes after. Okay, maybe there are a few exceptions actually, but it's very rare that anyone's done a great job of this, certainly. If they have, it's usually stuff like watch 6 videos per week, and it's nothing that's actually like productive or is going to help them in a major way. So what I do in the first session, my intro 1 hour with a free half-hour session that I do when anyone comes to me for coaching, I make sure I spend that extra time and I give that for free in the first lesson, because that is not their fault that they don't have structure, and they need structure to get the most out of coaching. And I feel really guilty about just turning up every week and doing a sweat with someone with no structure. I need to have goals in place for them, things they're working on, direction for them in their time in between sessions for them to take. That is so important. It's the core of my coaching. And so I would definitely recommend that you guys, if you're not hiring a coach this year, and that's another good one, by the way, is to hire a coach, because that's, again, very clear, simple, guided, specific thing that will help you a ton if you pick the right coach. But even if you're not, create your own syllabus. Create goals, how you're going to learn specifically. This will help you enormously, and it will make study less of an irritation, because you're not just going to be sitting down and studying any random thing. Work out what's relevant for your games, work out what people are doing wrong, how to exploit it, work out how to study those areas. 3, cut down on videos and increase productive study. This is a big one because people tend to be too receptive in their learning. Like if I say to a student, what are your current study methods? Then 9 times out of 10, they will involve driving, listening to podcasts, or watching videos, or commuting to work on the train and listening to podcasts, or, you know, just basically reading a poker book on the train, or something receptive. Like, it won't be anything. I understand lives are busy, people don't have loads of time to study poker, but you do need to allocate time at your computer in work mode where you're doing the thinking, you're doing the solving of the spot, and you're producing answers. Even if those are terrible answers at first and you're really wrong, it's better to start working on that thought process, get feedback. That's why my student forum is so busy these days, because people know that I've taught them that they have to get involved there and they have to post hands there and get feedback, even if they're wrong and their thoughts just sound like a rambling lunatic. That's okay at first, because they'll get feedback and they'll improve that thought process. That's what I did. That's where I started getting feedback on my thought process. You have to produce to get feedback and to create the thought processes that you need to succeed. Number 4, good goal would be make a mental game document and track my tilt nesting progress. I just wrote there on my guide sheet, tilt busting process. Tilt busting progress, that's what that should say. I was like, what the hell is tilt nesting? That sounds really bad. It's like growing more tilt out of tilt hatching out of previous tilt and just growing exponentially out of your control like a horrible plague. I don't like that tilt nesting at all. I'm going to get rid of that right now. Tilt busting. So your tilt busting document is going to be awareness of your mental game. Be thinking about like what types of tilt you suffer from. Get The Mental Game of Poker, by the way, by Jared Tenler, great book. And in there it will tell you like a process that I use with my students as well, slightly tweaked to suit my coaching style, to help people become aware of their tilt in game, identify when it's happening, know why it's illogical, remind themselves subconsciously why it's illogical, and then quit their session if they have to. That kind of thing. If you have a document, dear diary, today I tilted really bad, that's great, because you actually can track your progress and you can work on your mental game in a quantifiable way instead of just being like, stop tilting this year. No, that's not going to happen. That's a ridiculous goal. Like, don't come to me with those goals, because I'm just going to tell you, no, they're terrible. So, last goal I'm going to go over is just a very general one. It is a little bit vague, but it's a very good thought at the same time, and that is take poker seriously and professionally this year. Just have a professional ethos to poker, have a professional approach, and don't scrimp on your work ethic, and don't justify all kinds of bad poker habits to yourself. If you just remind yourself of that all the way through the year, it's nothing specific, but it is one vague goal that I think can be applied generally, because you might want to flesh it out as well and see how you're going to be more professional. I am not allowed to be on Facebook while I'm doing a session. I am not allowed to go around and shout at my family because I ran bad. That's unprofessional. Accept the variance like a pro. That kind of thing. Like, you just want to go through, maybe flesh that out a little bit and list what things you're going to do to make your poker game more professional, your approach more serious. But yeah, it's also good as a general reminder. It's something you could have just as a general goal as well. Just be professional this year. And if a professional, contractor you'd expect certain things of any kind of tradesman. A poker player is no different, but it's kind of like you owe that to yourself, not your customers, because you are your own customer in poker. You're the one that's making you the money, and that's it. You're the sole accountable person. You can always play. You've always got the action. You've got to do well. So, okay, so those are some good and bad New Year's resolutions. I hope that helps you this year if you're sort of like contemplating how you're going to improve your game. I'll be taking on students in the new year. Well, I still am just now, actually. If you're looking to get going the next week or so, but definitely in the new year when most people start, just hit me up admin@carrotcorner.com. Check out the site, carrotcorner.com. Prices are not going to go up over the fest this year or whatever. They're stable for now, so check out prices on there under coaching packages. And get in touch if you've got anything you want to know about coaching services or feedback for the podcast. And I'm going to try and make another 52 episodes of Carrot Poker next year. There'll be another couple, obviously, in December before the new year starts, but in 2016 there should be another 52 episodes. This is a long-term project. The book will be out in the new year. There's lots of things I'm looking forward to, career-wise, I guess. I want to share them with you guys. So there'll be loads more from me and my students and my poker friends and guests on the show in the new year. Thank you for listening and for your loyal support for the podcast. Please share it with everyone else you know in the new year as well. Try and drum up as much publicity as we can and help as many people as we can with their game. Alright, take it easy, guys, and I will see you all next week when we'll probably get back to some structured learning following the roadmap of my book again. So until then, good luck at the tables.